Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and we do truly have a global audience. You are all so welcome to this, the third in our 6-part series entitled Women's Agency in the Holocaust and Beyond. This evening's webinar, the title is The Unknown Story of Hedy Lamarr, and we are truly privileged to have wonderful resources to share this story with us. This 6-part series is a partnership between the South African Holocaust and Genocide Foundation, which includes all 3 Holocaust and Genocide centers in South Africa, the Durban Holocaust and Genocide Center, who is the host this evening, and Cape Town and Johannesburg. My colleagues Tally Nates and Heather Blumenthal and I have been working together with our Austrian counterparts, and particularly with the Austrian Embassy, Ambassador Johann Brieger, who is with us this evening. We are delighted with this partnership, and thank you so much for your friendship and support in our important work. We're delighted to have so many people joining this evening, and I was reluctant to be punctual because I know how many people have registered, and people are still coming in thick and fast. So hopefully not too many will miss the beginning. But I want to also welcome in particular our beloved Holocaust survivors. And I know that Ella Blumenthal had registered. I haven't been able to check whether she's in the room yet, but irrespective, I do want to wish a huge congratulations and mazel tov to Ella on her 100th birthday that she is celebrating at the moment. A wonderful achievement, and we are incredibly proud of all our survivors and are particularly thinking and celebrating and sharing in the excitement of Ella's special milestone birthday. Thank you to our trustees and teams from the Durban, Cape Town and Johannesburg centers for all your support and hard work in making sure that this series has and is the success that it has been. We're delighted to have many friends from across the globe. And I don't want to take too much time. I do want to introduce our 2 exceptional speakers, Dr. Danielle Spera and Heather Massie. The format for this evening is that immediately after the introduction, and I will introduce both our speakers now so that they can continue seamlessly one after the other in making their presentations about the remarkable Hedy Lamarr. I think she is a household name for those of us who are old enough growing up, and certainly a magnificently beautiful figure. But we will discover tonight how much more Hedy Lamarr it was and certainly still is in the global picture. Dr. Danielle Spera is the director of the Jewish Museum in Vienna. She completed her doctorate, and the doctoral thesis was on the election campaign of the Social Democratic Party in the interwar period. She went on thereafter to achieve an incredibly successful career in journalism, and in fact became one of the most recognizable faces in the Austrian media scene. In July 2010, she was appointed as the director of the Jewish Museum in Vienna, a position she still holds and has been widely credited with greatly increasing the public profile of the museum. And in fact, in 2019, in November, they opened an exhibition on Hedy Lamarr, which was entitled Lady Bluetooth at the Jewish Museum, obviously, in Vienna. She's an author and publisher and has of numerous books and publications, and so you can imagine how thrilled we are to be able to have Danielle Spera address us. Immediately after Danielle, Heather Massie, who will speak and share her presentation. Heather, in an effort to join her love of science and her passion for theatre, she wrote and performed her solo show, Hedy, the Life and Inventions of Hedy Lamarr. And how she managed to combine theatre and her love of science is that she studied astrophysics at the University of Virginia and theatre arts at the Virginia Technicon. So she certainly has managed to combine those 2. In 2019, she was a Fulbright specialist to South Africa through the United States State Department, and has spent a great deal of time in South Africa, and we're thrilled that she's going to focus a lot of her presentation on the time and impact of her visit to South Africa. She has achieved numerous prestigious outstanding performance awards for many of her productions, and we are absolutely privileged to have both Dr. Danielle Spera and Heather Massie as our guests this evening. Danielle will begin, Heather will continue, and then we'll have time for a Q&A. So for those of you who have questions during the presentations and obviously afterwards, please put them in the chat, and we look forward to engaging with our speakers immediately after their presentations. Without further ado, I would like to ask Dr. Danielle Spera to address us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your wonderful introduction. It's a great privilege to be with you. Welcome to everybody from Vienna. And I will try to share my screen now with you. And I hope I will succeed in that. I hope everybody can see my screen. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful, perfect. So I would like to tell a little bit about Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr was one of the greatest Hollywood stars of the 1930s and 40s. For a long time, however, her role as an inventor and the precursor of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi was less well known. Here you can see the poster of our exhibition that we had on display 2 years ago, Hedy Lamarr, Lady Bluetooth. That was the title of our exhibition. Yeah, Hedy was born in Vienna in 1914. Her father, Emil Kiesler, came from Lemberg, now Lviv, and worked at the Kreditanstalt Bankverein. He was a banker. Her mother, Nee Lichtwitz, known as Gertrude Lichtwitz, came from Budapest, and she was a trained concert pianist. The assimilated family lived in the wealthy Viennese district of Döbling. And of course, they made wonderful vacations in ski resorts and summer resorts at like Wolfgangsee. And Hedy spent a real carefree childhood in Austria. You also can see her nanny here on this picture on the right-hand side. And you can see her beloved father on the left-hand side of this picture. Growing up in Döbling, as mentioned, she spent her teenage years, of course, with skiing and on the lakesides. So Emil Kiesler, her father, she called him the love of my life. So he was always present for her, and he remained her big idol through her whole life. Hedy left school at a very young age, and she started at the age of 16 with her film career. Gold on the Street was the first film she appeared, and she moved to Berlin in 1931, and she started to work with Max Reinhardt. Max Reinhardt, a wonderful theater producer who actually also was the inventor of the Salzburg Festival, of course, and I'm sure many of you have been to the Salzburg Festival. Max Reinhardt supported her, and he was the first person to call her the most beautiful girl in the world. The movie magazines celebrated Hedy Kiesler as the rising actress in Austria, and she was famous in Austria. On the right-hand side, you can see her in her role as Princess Sisi, and the photo is by Trude Fleischmann, a very renowned Austrian female Jewish photographer. Yeah, the turning point in Hedy's life was the major role in the Czechoslovak film Ecstasy. That was in 1933. It was directed by Gustav Machati. Hedy played Eva, an emancipated, very well-situated young woman who breaks out of a loveless marriage to begin a relationship with another man. This movie continued the first nude scene, a brief nude scene, obviously performed by Hedy, and a simulated orgasm. So it turned out a really, really big scandal. Of course, it brought her worldwide celebrity. Yeah, you can see here this one scene out of the movie. Yeah, very shortly later, in 1933, Hedy Kiesler married Fritz Mandl. He was 13 years her senior and a wealthy director of Hirtenberger Patronenfabrik. It was an ammunition production, and among his political contacts were the Italian dictator Benito Mussolini and the Austrian Heimwehr leader Ernst Rüdiger von Starhemberg. Mandl poured treasures upon his beautiful young wife, but he was also extremely jealous. He locked Hedy in the house, so she was not allowed to leave the house anymore. But they lived a very prominent social life, of course, and they appeared at society events like the Salzburg Festival or the Vienna Opera Ball, as you can see her here. And you can see on none of these photographs she smiles, so it must have been a really rough period of time in her life, trapped in this golden cage of Fritz Mandl. Yeah, you can see the production, the ammunition production of Fritz Mandl, the Hirtenberger Patronenfabrik. And Hedy escaped from this terrible marriage because she really felt trapped in this golden cage, and she managed to sneak out of the house, and really in the sense of the word. She traveled to Paris and via Paris to London, and she met in London Hollywood producer Louis B. Mayer. He was looking out for European talents to bring them to Hollywood, and the first contract offer to Hedy she declined because the money was not enough for her, so she turned down his offer. But she managed to get to the United States on the same ship on the Normandie, as you can see here with Louis B. Mayer. And Louis B. Mayer saw on the ship how the reaction of all the male passengers were, and so they found a solution for her contract, and she got more money offered than before in London. Yeah, he actually was inventing Hedy Lamarr because he said with the name Hedwig Mandl or Hedwig Kiesler, she cannot make a career in Hollywood, so he was proposing that she would call herself Lamarr. Barbara Lamarr, you can see her on the left-hand side of the screen, was a silent movie actress, and obviously Louis B. Mayer had a romantic affair with her. Here you can see Louis B. Mayer with his wife, who was of course very jealous of Barbara Lamarr, and he sort of remembered this name, and so he decided that Hedy Lamarr should choose the name Hedy Lamarr and not to call herself Hedy Kiesler or Hedy Mandl anymore. Hedy arrives in Hollywood, of course, in a completely new situation, and she immediately was tested to decide a new hairstyle, new makeup, what clothing or how the light would be on the sets. And Louis B. Mayer asked her to set off her beauty the best as she could. Countless glamour photos of her were taken, and during that time she also met Laszlo Willinger, a famous photographer whom she had already encountered in Vienna. Mr. Willinger went to Shanghai, fled to Shanghai from Vienna with his family. That's also a very fascinating story. So here you can see some of the beautiful photos from that period of time. And her first Hollywood movie was Algiers, and there her beauty was staged to perfection. Her performance was an overwhelming success, and overnight Hedy became an international star. The films in which she appeared would maybe consider trivial today. She was cast almost exclusively on account of her looks, and you see here the first part of her famous quote: "Any girl can be glamorous. All she has to do is stand still and look stupid." Because of her strong accent, she frequently played European women, often migrants, and outside of the studio, she also became part of the Hollywood star community, and she was one of the celebrities whose photos adorned magazine covers and whose private life, of course, was reported in magazines. The screen icon she became actually with the role of the biblical femme fatale, Delilah. Paramount Pictures paid her $100,000 for this role, an incredible amount of money for that time. It was directed by Cecil B. DeMille, Samson and Delilah, and became the most successful film of its time. Dressed in her role as Delilah, she made it on the cover of magazines just as like Newsweek or Cahiers du Cinéma, or the Wiener Illustrierte. The sensational costume with its peacock feathers was created by the legendary costume designer and multiple Oscar winner Edith Heath. You can see it here. It's really an incredible dress. We wanted to get it for the exhibition. It's in Hollywood, but unfortunately the dress was not allowed to travel because it's so very, very delicate, because all of these peacock feathers, they would really suffer from a transport over a continent. Yeah, sensational costumes, incredible costumes in the movies where she starred. In 1945, she terminated her contract with MGM and founded her own production company, Mars Film Corporation. Her first film was a success, but the second and the third nearly bankrupted and then finally bankrupted the company. She reinvented herself again, and she transformed a holiday home in Aspen to a ski hotel, Austrian style. But unfortunately, at one of her divorces, she lost this hotel, this resort. Yeah, Hedy Lamarr had a very, very turbulent private life. Her first marriage we had already heard about when she was married to Fritz Mandl, the ammunition producer. Her second husband, he is Gene Markey. Then John Loder. With John Loder, she has 2 kids. Teddy Stauffer, Howard Lee, and finally Louis Balls. Yeah, Hedy as a mother, I already mentioned, she first had an adoptive child, and then she had 2 children with John Loder. And Home Sweet Home, this is how I called this sheet. In the 1940s and 50s, she lived in various houses in Hollywood. She moved several times from one to the other, from Beverly Hills to Bel Air. And now I cannot, I can again go to the next. Yeah, Hedgerow Farm, for example, and you can see similarities, little similarities also to Austrian homes. This was always in her head that she wanted sort of have a little piece of her former home country. Hedy during the war. In World War II, the movie industry helped to raise funds for the war. Stars such as her appeared in the public to sell war bonds. Bette Davis and John Garfield actually had founded the Hollywood Canteen, where Hedy Lamarr, along with other stars, served and danced with the troops. And yeah, she also entertained soldiers in her own home. And what is really very, very important, yeah, you can see her here with the GIs, that she saved her mother's life. And actually, as it is said, Louis B. Mayer was here very helpful to get Hedy's mother through the Kiesler out of Vienna. I think it was really, really very dangerous for her in Vienna, and without the help of Hedy, she wouldn't have been able to leave Austria. And actually, they started a very close relationship again. I read a lot of letters that both of them exchanged, some small notes. They were living together, and it seems that they had found to each other after these really, really very, very difficult times. Yeah, Hedy was an amateur inventor. She was starting when she was still a child. She was putting her toys together. She deconstructed and constructed them from fresh. She was always thinking of finding practical household aids, or even when the war began, she thought that the soldiers abroad should have Coca-Cola, but unfortunately it was not possible to fly the bottles battles to Europe or in the war zones. So she invented a frizzy tablet, which you could just put into the water and it would turn into Coca-Cola. But unfortunately, these tablets tasted too much like toothpaste, so she was not successful with this invention. Yeah, but with the avant-garde composer Georges Antheil, she developed an idea for fail-safe remote control systems for torpedoes. And this was actually the forerunner for Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. So both inventors, she and Georges Antheil, were fierce opponents to the Nazis and gave their invention to the US Navy as a contribution to the American war efforts. But the system was too complex for immediate practical implementation. Yeah, you can see Hedy, all these medals and everything she earned for her inventions. And I mentioned before that Hedy often said that Austria would be her real home, and then that she felt very, very Austrian. You can see her here in Hollywood. She always, or very often, dressed in Austrian costumes, in dirndl, etc. And for the exhibition, I brought one of her Austrian hats with me. It was one of her most favorite hats, and when I carried the objects from Los Angeles to Vienna, I did not have a box for the hat, so I had it on my head during the flight. This is a scene, yeah, that was rememberable. Yeah. The fall of an icon. In 1966, Hedy was charged with shoplifting. The incident actually inspired Andy Warhol to make a film, The Shoplifter, it was called. And in the same year, also her autobiography was published, but she was not very much in favor of this autobiography. And then she started a lawsuit against the author. Yeah, beginning in the 1960s, Hedy Lamarr had a number of cosmetic operations, which must have presented a considerable challenge to the surgeons. She demanded to try out completely new operation techniques, and in later years, it turned out that these operations must not have been too successful. In her last years, and you can see it on the left-hand side, that really the operations did not do her face very well. She moved to Florida in 1987, first to Miami and then to Orlando. She rarely went out. She rarely left her home. She spent most of the time at home, also not receiving any guests, but she was only communicating with her phone. And she died alone in January in the year 2000. And according to her wishes, her children Denise and Anthony scattered her ashes in the Vienna woods, which was a refuge during her childhood. It was very, very near to Döbling, where the residence of the Kiesler family was, and the remains were buried in a grave of honor at the Zentralfriedhof in Vienna, Central Cemetery, in one of the city's honorary graves, but her children had to fight for this honorary grave to obtain it from the city of Vienna. But it's actually a very, very beautiful gravesite, as you can see here on this picture. Her afterlife, her legacy, she lived long enough to be recognized as an inventor very late in her life. She got several prizes and received honors after her death. And documentaries were made about her. You see here a poster of the movie Bombshell, and in a TV series is now in planning with the Israeli actress Gal Gadot, who will star Hedy Lamarr in this miniseries. And maybe a couple of thoughts about our exhibition. You can see me here with her son, with Hedy Lamarr's son, Anthony Loader, whom I had the privilege to visit. And here you can see actually the head. It's on the shelf on the left-hand side on the left-hand picture. Anthony Loader gave us a lot of objects and private letters and documents of his mother, and actually he gave all of this as a donation to our museum. He just wanted that we pay for his expenses, which we, of course, with great thankfulness did. Here you can see the head again, and in the middle it's one of her toys I was talking about, which she always tried to deconstruct and construct. This dog is like a play, has a musical play in it, and hidden, and Hedy deconstructed and constructed it. We have a lot of memorabilia which we displayed in the exhibition, and you see there were paper cut dolls, cut out dolls for Hedy Lamarr, and we rearranged them in our exhibition to show also this side of her. So it turned out to be really nice, a nice display. Here you have some more insights in our exhibition, in the spaces where we showed the exhibition. Yeah, and that's it from me and from my side, and thank you so much for your attention.
Hello, I am Heather Massie. Thank you to Dr. Danielle Spera for your wonderful presentation on Hedy's life and her work inventing during World War II. And thank you, Mary Cluck, for your introduction. I will go ahead and go through the steps to share my screen with you. There are a few that I need to do in order to make sure that it happens correctly. All right, I think I may have come through. Claudia, has that worked?
Heather, sorry, we can't see your presentation just yet, and we did lose you for a second. Do you want to try again?
I shall try again. So I should start from the beginning.
Yes, maybe just optimize the sound and don't optimize the video. That might be the issue.
I might just dispense with that. Okay.
That's perfect. We can see it.
Oh, wonderful. I can't see myself, but we'll go ahead with this as is. All right, so I'm delighted to be here. Also, thank you to Tally Nates for recommending my work for this event, and Heather Blumenthal and Claudia, and for everyone with the South African Holocaust and Genocide Foundation. Special thanks also to Arya Ascari for his incredible work in planning this event, and especially for the support of the Austrian Embassy, Pretoria, and Ambassador Johann Brieger to make this program possible. Happy birthday to Ella, and welcome to all of our Holocaust survivors. I am honored to be here with you today to speak of my work celebrating Hedy Lamarr as a woman of science, and about my play Hedy, The Life and Inventions of Hedy Lamarr, a true story of Hollywood glamour and scientific genius, about this incredible Jewish woman and her contributions to the war effort and her contributions to modern technology. Like Hedy, I have many dreams and many big ideas. You can see me here in my high school years in the observatory working on my science forum project on astrophotography. I began university studying astrophysics with dreams of becoming an astronaut, and ended up with a degree in theater arts. I finally found a way to marry my loves of art and science in the subject of Hedy Lamarr. By celebrating her unexpected genius through theater, I researched, wrote, developed, and perform Hedy, The Life and Inventions of Hedy Lamarr in the United States and around the world because I have a passion for science. My mission is threefold: to ensure that the first things people will think of when they hear the name Hedy Lamarr are intelligence, ingenuity, and invention. To inspire audiences to find ways each day to make the world a better place. And especially to inspire young women in pursuits of science and technology. I premiered the show off-Broadway at Theater Row on 42nd Street in New York City, where I am based. On November 9th, 2016, what would have been Hedy's 102nd birthday, that's the day on which I premiered, I portray Hedy Lamarr as well as the 35 other characters in her story, including Jimmy Stewart, Clark Gable, Betty Davis, Louis B. Mayer, and more. And always the most important relationship in the show is Hedy's relationship with the audience. I've taken the show around the United States, to Ireland, Northern Ireland, Italy, Sweden, Ukraine, Iceland, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. Today I will focus on South Africa, and starting with some of my other favorites, this is the InspireFest Technology Conference in Dublin, Ireland at the Bord Energy Theatre. I also got to perform aboard the Intrepid USS Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum in New York City for their Goals for Girls program. I did a special performance for Hedy's family members and biographers. On the right, you can see her son, Anthony Loader. This year, actually, I got to perform at the National World War II Museum in New Orleans at BB's Stage Door Canteen, and had some very special guests there as well, including this World War II veteran on his 96th birthday. So the wonderful quality of Hedy's story is that it appeals to a vast range of ages, from primary learners all the way to this youthful 96-year-old. There are so very many interest groups that this show appeals to. I bring it to theaters, arts festivals, science festivals, university schools, science centers, museums, libraries, Jewish centers, STEM and STEAM events, technology conferences, and more, and offer panel discussions, lectures, master classes, and workshops. A lot of people ask, how is it that you are bringing Hedy Lamarr to South Africa? Well, this gentleman is the key to that having happened. This is Leslie Lee. He was my dearest friend in life. And he was an African-American playwright. He was a Tony-nominated and Obie-winning playwright. And the State Department contacted him in 2008 to teach a playwriting workshop at the Entwas Arts Festival in Bulawayo. I traveled with him as his assistant. And he always spoke about going back to Zimbabwe, but his health did not last, and we lost him in 2014. And now that I have something to offer, I contacted the Entwasa Arts Festival in 2017 and was able to perform my show in the festival. Here I am with my favorite audience member from that show at Entwasa, and I was also blessed that I was able to teach a masterclass for area artists. Now, in all of my work, I have some dear friends in Zimbabwe and in South Africa. And I am now goddaughter to this lovely lady who is now 18 months old. And she is named Leslie after Leslie Lee. After Intwasa, my first performance in South Africa was at the Alexander Bar Cafe and Theater in Cape Town. I had several performances there and was invited to stay on to the next week to perform at the Cape Town Science Center for Africa Code Week. You can see me here with some of my favorite audience members there. Also, during this journey, I went to Khayelitsha to visit the Tope Foundation. And after visiting and meeting these wonderful women who work with the girls in Khayelitsha, I determined that whenever I would go back, I would work with the girls in Khayelitsha. We'll get back to that. So fast forward to 2018, I was able to perform in Haifa, the Harare International Festival of the Arts in Zimbabwe. Here you can see me on stage there, and here with all of my workshop participants for my master class. After that, I had a lovely tour, my second tour of South Africa, starting with the UniZulu Science Center in Richards Bay. I got to perform all week and performance at the center, then also at St. Catherine's School for Girls. I had a wonderful time performing for them, and within this performance, I discovered a lot of things about the show and all of the messages that are positive in Hedy's story for young women and for young people and for all people. Some of them I hadn't recognized before, so it was lovely to be with them. After that, I performed also for the Dlangezwa Girls High School and had a wonderful time with these young ladies as well. Then I went to the University of Zululand and their Department of Creative Arts. You can see many of the faculty members here, and on the right in the yellow shirt, Derek Fish, who orchestrated all of the activities with the UniZulu Science Center. He also brought myself and other science activities to the mall near Richards Bay, including the girls of the I Am Science program. I performed a local performance in Mtunzini, and then I make it to Khayelitsha. So first I do a public performance, and these are some of the audience members, and I get to do a performance also for the girls of the Tope Foundation. Included in that, I spent the day with them in a master class in improvisation and ensemble building and coached them on scenes from plays by Leslie Lee. I got to do the same thing at the Makukanye Art Room in Khayelitsha, which is the first shack theater in South Africa founded by Mendisi Sindo. I performed the show for the community and taught a master class for the artists of the company there, including scenes by Leslie Lee, as well as monologues. This was one of the 5 groups of artists during this tour to which I was honored to deliver copies of 5 of Leslie's plays as gifts from his publisher, Samuel French. I returned in 2018 to the Alexander Bar in partnership with Women in Tech Cape Town. I moved on to George for audiences of several ages at the beautiful George Arts Theater, and then spent a week at the Saibono Discovery Center, excuse me, the Saibono Discovery Center in Johannesburg. I had a week of performances for many secondary schools and public audiences. I was incredibly impressed with the learners and the messages that they got from the show in discussions during the Q&A after the performances. I encourage all audiences, especially the learners, to pursue their passions, to pursue those things that they love the most in order to do their best work and lead their best lives. I even had some young ones at one of the shows. Then I met Shadrach Mkansi of SASTA, the South African Agency for Science and Technology Advancement, and he invited me to present a lecture on Hedy at the observatory in Johannesburg. So you can imagine that this astronomy lover was delighted to have some time with the telescope after the show. In 2019, I had scheduled a wonderful 3rd tour of South Africa and was very honored to serve as a Fulbright specialist sponsored by the US State Department, World Learning, the US Embassy, and SASTA. I began in Giani for the Rural Education Festival for secondary learners in Limpopo. I then moved on to Tsenin for the Rural Education Festival. And then on to George for the National Science Week with the Nkobeko Youth and Science Center. My first engagement was for girls in an after-school group, as you can see here. And somewhere in between the technical rehearsal and the performance, I broke my foot. But before heading to the hospital to determine exactly what had happened, I insisted on doing a presentation on Hedy, including scenes from the show, seated in my chair with a bag of ice. Within 1.5 days, I was back at it with a revised program of lecture and engagement sessions in local schools. I shared with hundreds of learners also about Hedy for career days at the center, and presented for the ESCOM Expo contestants. Then I headed to Ypsilanti and the Christoph Meyer Maths and Science Center to present for the center's students and community, learners visiting the center, and I got to visit many primary and secondary schools. And this one here, the Lamula Primary School, was one of the very best days of my life. These were very bright young people, and I loved being there to hear about their dreams. And they also decided they wanted to perform their cultural competition songs for me, so I had performances from them as well. It was an incredibly lovely experience with them, and it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't broken my foot, so there was a silver lining involved. Here are some of the other schools for which I presented about Hedy Lamarr, including all of these young people, and one of the classes there. And I would have, when I would go into the schools, I would have them say, I am smart and I am powerful, just as an empowering message to them, so that they have those words come out of their mouths, so that they know that they can do all of the things that they dream of. Then I moved on to Johannesburg and Sandton, a theater on the square with the dear Daphne Kuhn, who presented the show there in her beautiful theater. I had 12 performances for incredible audiences there. And here's some proof that I performed the show complete with a boot and a crutch, and the show went marvelously. Now, last year I was supposed to be in South Africa for SciFest and for the National Arts Festival. Since I could not get there last year or this year, I did get to Reykjavik, Iceland for the Reykjavik Fringe Festival, and we streamed the show with a live audience in Reykjavik to the National Arts Festival. It was so wonderful to be able to share that, and was wonderful that I could do that by utilizing Hedy's technology. Now, Hedy's story is so powerful and it works for so many audiences that I'm honored that the show has received numerous awards from performances around the world, including my 2 most recent from Reykjavik. It has received overwhelmingly positive critical acclaim, and this is a testament to the strength of Hedy's story, that the show has proven successful for all of those audiences, from youth all the way through the older generations. I hope to be back to South Africa soon for the National Arts Festival, hopefully next year, and SciFest, and for many more audiences. You can learn more and see scenes from the show at heathermassie.com. And you can please reach out to me if you have ideas of places in South Africa or anywhere else to include in upcoming tours. And as Hedy did, let us all work to find ways each day to make the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Danielle and to Heather for that amazing presentation. What a remarkable person. I have a question, and just a reminder to the audience to please put your questions in the chat, or to let us know if you'd like to open the mic. Tally Nates, my colleague from Johannesburg, is asking how the story of Hedy was received by South African audiences. And Heather Blumenthal from Cape Town wants to know what were the messages within the story of Hedy that resonated with the audiences. So that was very much along my question. Heather, if you could just share, did you do the performance of Hedy and then take the lessons and extrapolate those? How did you, what was the educational component and methodology with using Hedy's story?
Well,
particularly in South Africa, which obviously is an audience that we would resonate with, a lot of us.
Yes, yes. So, well, as Shadrach Mkanzi of SASTA explained when we visited the U.S. Embassy, he told them that this way of communicating science is very powerful, because storytelling is so important in the culture there in South Africa. So using Hedy's story in this method definitely works as a way of communicating that. Definitely, the show has been received very well in South Africa. And with young people, so St. Catherine's Girls' School, when Hedy shares that she was married 6 times, there was this vocal gasp and some words spoken, I think, even by the girls. They were so surprised. And because there's an improvisational element to the performance, I was able to stop for a moment and say, and use that as a lesson, and have Hedy tell them, well, this is a lesson to you to choose well the first time. and choose someone who's going to support your dreams and support you as a woman in the world in accomplishing all those things that you want to accomplish. Of course, that is one of the important things of the show, but I didn't realize that her being married 6 times was going to be a way for sort of a growing moment with the audience. And then a lot of the other ones, just a lot of even the young men in secondary schools had very wonderful things to say about the show and about Hedy's contributions and what that means for women in the world.
Wonderful, Heather, thank you. And Danielle, how was the story received in Austria? Tally's asking, and who came to the exhibition, and how is she remembered in Austria? And I would like to add to that about, is there an acknowledgement in the scientific community of the role that she played in modern science, please?
Yeah, well, it took a very, very long time until this role of her was really cherished. And the exhibition was extremely successful. Actually, it was the second most successful exhibition after an exhibition we had on Helena Rubinstein, because for me, it's also very, very important to show female perspectives on Judaism, and also the role of that Vienna played in the lives of like Helena Rubinstein or also, of course, Hedy Lamarr. So we had lots of young people coming to the exhibition. We had lots of school classes to learn. We had students and, of course, our regular audience, which if we talk about our Austrian visitors, they're mostly non-Jewish, and our visitors from abroad are mostly Jewish. And the city of Vienna cherishes the legacy of Hedy Lamarr with a prize, which is awarded since 2018. It's a prize that goes to young researchers in the field, female researchers in the field of digital analytics. It is to encourage young women to go to this path, to decide to go along this path, and it's the prize sum is 10,000 euros. So I think this is a very, very nice, very nice idea to commemorate Hedy Lamarr.
Absolutely, education of young women is a wonderful legacy. Obviously, there are a lot of wonderful compliments in the chat, thanking everybody, you both, and for your amazing insights and interesting story. I'm also interested that as far as my research, she has no formal education. She didn't have any scientific education. She obviously had a flair and interest. Could you elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, it's so fascinating because we know that she even in her childhood tried to deconstruct and construct her toys. You know, we have this really small toy of hers out of wood, and she really, I don't know how she did that to put it together like a puzzle again. And she continued that all throughout her life. And her son, Anthony, he tells us that that her goal was always to make the life for others easier, to invent things that would sort of help people in their daily life. Yeah. And of course, her big goal was to fight against the Nazis, as she, of course, was always in fearing that her mother would be imprisoned. And so this was something that was a very big goal of her in her life. And of course, I think Georges Antheil was also someone, he was the co-inventor, so to speak. He encouraged her. And so the two of them were, I don't know, natural geniuses, obviously, because as you mentioned, she did not, I mean, she of course went to school and she came up from a very, very bourgeois and well-educated educated parents. But she decided to leave school very early when she was 16.
Incredible when you think about it, and that it's, you know, the impact of her genius, apart, you know, nothing to do with the acting, it's remarkable. What a story. And Beth Chernoff is asking, did Hedy finally receive her just royalties? So I think that's always, was there a financial legacy for her heirs at least? And also, could lives have been saved? Has there been any reflection on whether lives could have been saved if the military had had the confidence, you know, to adopt her invention during the war?
Well, in retrospect,
analysis of that.
This is, of course, a very hard question to answer. I think we can only assume, but of course we do not know. Yeah, we do not know. We also do not know how long it would have taken until they really would have been able to get all the ships so constructed that they would carry sort of such a weapon or such a device, better to say. But of course, in now we can really just it's just an assumption. Maybe it could have helped. Yeah.
But I do believe that it was employed during the Cuban Missile Crisis, the technology, and that it played a part in preventing that from escalating. So I feel that what she intended to have happen during World War II at least did happen for the Cuban Missile Crisis, and that it did save lives.
Amazing. And there's a question in terms of, one of the questions was she proud of her Jewish heritage? Did she focus or tell any of her audience that in fact she was Jewish? Do you know any of that aspect of her life? And well, her Jewish roots at least, because I did in fact read that at some point, am I right that was it her that had converted to Catholicism, or her no, am I wrong?
Well, actually, yeah, for Fritz Mandl forced her to convert. Sorry, of course, when she still was in Vienna, and they even married in the Karlskirche, which is one of the major churches in Vienna. So it must have been love sort of in the beginning. And but religion for her did not play a major role. Yeah, I mean, but even in Hollywood at that time, you know, I think she was not talking a lot about her roots. Her family, of course, like in Vienna, most of the Jews at that period of time, especially out of this very bourgeois entrepreneurs, they did not go to the synagogue very often, so they were rather drawn away from religion. Actually, very close to the house where Hedy's parents and she lived was a synagogue in Dolina Gasse, and we now have a commemoration, a light symbol to commemorate that in this house that's of course destroyed by now, and there's a residence now that there was a synagogue. So her parents were attending that, but for her later on it did not play a major role.
I know, yes, she didn't claim that publicly or even to her children, but
really,
I'm able, yes. So in the show, because I have the audience having summoned Hedy from the beyond to explain how she was able to do something so unexpected. In that context, I do have her address the things that were going on in her mind to the audience in terms of how the war was affecting the lives of Jews, how that impacted on her father's health, and how that inspired her to create this technology, frequency hopping spread spectrum technology that she and George created.
And Danielle, in terms of the Austrian school curriculum, there's a question here from Barbara Wahlberg. Is there a focus on telling women, sharing women's narratives, such as Hedy's, especially in promoting both art and science? But I'm saying particularly for young women and young girls, is there an opportunity? When there is an opportunity, but is the opportunity something that the Austrian curriculum focuses on?
Not really, unfortunately. I mean, a part of the curriculum is, of course, now Holocaust education, which is really very important, of course, but not a very strong focus on the female stories. So this is really a big goal of ours in the museum, to focus on that perspective. But I think now with the Hedy Lamarr Award for female researchers, this gets really very wide media attention through all the newspapers and also television. So it's really an encouragement for young women to start to go into this direction and to work in this field. Yeah.
So Heather, one of the questions from Michael Kaplan is, do you ever get tired of being Hedy or performing? How do you maintain the momentum, as it were?
Oh no, I don't get tired of it. I will say that I was terribly sad to be missing performing as Hedy during the pandemic.
Oh.
I created the story twofold: to take care of the audience and to take care of myself. I didn't want it to be just Hedy, just someone speaking about their life for 90 minutes, or can be different lengths, but the full show is 90 minutes. Whenever I could pull in other characters and play Jimmy Stewart in a scene with Hedy, play Louis B. Mayer in her negotiations for a better contract, and bring in her mother and her father and her husbands, I do that so that the audience can experience these things in real time with Hedy. And that's exciting for the audience and exciting for me as well, because I get to do all the things I love to do. I get to play multiple characters. I love dialect work. And when else as a female performer do you get to play leading lady and character roles at the same time? So there's always something for me to work on and always something to make it new. And because the most important relationship is Hedy's relationship with the audience, each performance is special.
It's unique.
Each audience is unique.
And Heather, Valerie David asked, and obviously after complimenting you, says, have you been in touch with Gal Gadot's series to let them know about your show?
I see you, Valerie. I have not been in contact with them. I have tangentially asked people who are slightly related to that, but I haven't been able to contact them directly. Valerie is my partner in crime in terms of performing. She's a solo performer who has a show called The Pink Hulk about being a 3-time cancer survivor, and she was there with me in Reykjavik performing as well.
Oh, wow. Hi, welcome. Good to have you here, Valerie. Mervyn Davidovitz is asking, did any of the family besides her mother survive?
Actually, it's a very small family, so she didn't have any siblings. And as her father passed away very early in 1935, and her mother lived up until the year 1977. But apart from that, we do not know a lot about any other relatives. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I mean, we could go on and on and on. There's a lot of interest in what is the scientific invention, and it's, I see someone has, Beth Chernoff has posted that it's frequency hopping. It's a way of transmitting radio signals so that they change frequencies and making intercepting or jamming more difficult. So that's the answer provided in very succinctly. Thank you so much, Beth. to the question from Carol Wengrove. Heather Blumenthal from Cape Town is saying, in South Africa, we remember Hedy Lamarr as the beautiful Hollywood star. If one looks at her life now, would it be Hollywood star or Hedy the inventor?
I'm trying to change the automatic thought as a beautiful woman, and people think of Blazing Saddles and Hedy Lamarr, Mel Brooks' film, and I want the first thought that people think about Hedy is intelligence, ingenuity, invention. That's my work, and my passion is to bring her story to people and have that be what they think, so that if somebody says about a young woman, she's a real Hedy Lamarr, they know that she's smart.
I see that Danielle is nodding her head and clapping in agreement. What a wonderful way to close the special evening. Would you like to add to that, Danielle?
I can only agree to that. Absolutely right.
And
absolutely, absolutely. What a wonderful way to reinforce how there can be so much to life, and grabbing every opportunity and giving women, and particularly young women, the opportunity to, you know, follow their dreams, reach for the stars. What a fabulous evening with these two stars that we've had this evening. Thank you all so much for joining us. Just to confirm that we will have a slide up to remind you of our next, the 4th in the series, which will be in 2 Tuesdays' time. We look forward to welcoming you then. And once again, to both of our fabulous speakers, thank you for your time. Thank you for the excellent presentations. And thank you to the audience for your interest. Thank you again to Ambassador Brieger and to the South African Holocaust and Genocide Foundation for a special series. Good night, everybody. Good evening, good morning. Thank you for being with us.
Such an honor.
Thank you.